Welcome to this Power Learning Explainer. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this explainer with your fellow technicians. Today, we're totally demystifying the DSE 7320 generator controller. You know, if you've ever stared down a massive terminal strip and wondered how this little plastic box bosses around a giant industrial engine, well, you're exactly in the right place. We're going to break down the exact logic of how these automated systems think, feel, and react.
Okay, real quick, here is our game plan for today. 1. The generator's brain. 2. Inputs, or system senses. 3. Outputs, the system actions. 4. Real-life logic flow. And 5. Troubleshooting faults. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. The generator's brain. Master control logic.
So, the DSE 7320 is basically the ultimate master control logic for a diesel generator. It's constantly getting bombarded with rapid-fire information from sensors, processing that logic internally, and then instantly firing off commands to relays and breakers. To make this super simple, just think of the controller literally like a human brain. Our brains rely on inputs, right? Our human senses, like seeing a roadblock. Then, to react, our brain uses outputs, our human actions, like grabbing the steering wheel or shouting a warning. The generator controller works exactly the same way. Sensors provide the info, the controller processes the logic, and the outputs physically do the work.
Section 2. Digital inputs. System senses.
Okay, so what actually is a digital input? Simply put, digital inputs are the information coming into the controller, and they are strictly on or off signals. The DSE 7320 is just sitting there constantly asking its field devices, hey, is this switch open or closed? Is there voltage on this terminal or not? Did a fault happen? Is the main breaker on or off? That's it. A digital input only ever has two states. An active signal is detected, meaning it's on, or no signal is detected, meaning it's off.
And this perfectly illustrates switch logic in the real world. Think about a high-temperature switch mounted right on the engine block. Under a normal, happy condition, that switch stays open. Since it's open, no signal goes to the controller. But if that engine starts to overheat, boom, the fault condition hits, the switch physically closes. The input terminal on the controller suddenly gets hit with voltage or ground. The DSE senses this active signal as a fault, and it triggers the alarm or shuts the whole thing down. The controller is just constantly feeling the physical world through these simple open and closed states.
Now, as a field technician, you're going to see these critical inputs every single day. First up is the emergency stop. This one is specifically wired as a normally closed circuit. It's constantly sending a safe signal, but if someone smacks that e-stop button, the circuit opens, fuel cuts off instantly, and the engine dies. You've also got the low oil pressure switch, which closes if oil pressure drops so the engine doesn't seize up. Then there's the high engine temperature input we just talked about, usually triggering around 95 to 105 degrees Celsius. Finally, you've got your remote start signal coming from external panels and breaker feedback, which literally tells the controller the true physical position of the main breaker.
Section 3. Digital outputs. System actions.
All right, so the brain has received the sensory signals, but now it has to actually do something about it. This is absolutely crucial. Digital outputs are commands going out from the controller. If the inputs are the eyes and ears, the outputs are literally the hands of our system. They're on-off commands sent by the controller, usually pushing DC voltage that matches the engine's batteries, to physically energize external devices. This is how the controller actually manipulates the physical world, clicking relays, pulling solenoids, sounding alarms, and slamming breaker coils.
So when a command comes down the pipeline, the controller shoots out DC voltage to trigger the heavy lifters during startup. The big ones you'll handle are the fuel solenoid output, which absolutely must be on to let fuel flow, making it a supercritical shutdown output. Then the starter relay output, which energizes the starter motor to crank the engine until it hits firing speed. You also have the alarm horn output to yell at operators during a fault, the generator breaker close output, which only fires after voltage and frequency are perfectly stable, and the cooling fan output, which is incredibly common in canopy units, to kick on the radiator fan when things get too hot.
Okay, I want to pause here for a massive professional wiring best practice. You have to know when to use interposing relays. Most DSE outputs are just small transistor or relay-based circuits with pretty low current ratings, so you must use interposing relays or contactors for high current devices. Never, and I mean absolutely never, wire a large starter motor or a heavy draw coil directly to the controller's output pins. You will literally fry the internal relays of the controller. You always use an interposing relay to act as that heavy-duty middleman. I've put together this quick cheat sheet table for you so you can instantly compare inputs to outputs when you're out troubleshooting. Check out the direction row. Inputs go into the controller. Outputs go out. The purpose: inputs receive status, outputs send commands. For examples, inputs are your e-stops and temp switches, while outputs are starter relays and horns. But look at what they have in common: the signal type. Both are strictly on-off. Inputs act as your sensor information, and outputs act as the controller action. Simple as that.
Section 4. Real-life logic flow. Visualizing signal paths.
Let's actually visualize this signal path. We're going to map out the internal logic flow for a standard generator protection sequence, like a high-temperature shutdown. Step 1, the engine actually overheats. Step 2, the physical temperature switch on the engine block closes. Step 3, the digital input on the controller activates as it receives that new voltage. Step 4, the controller's brain processes the fault and instantly activates the alarm and shutdown digital outputs. Step 5, the fuel solenoid output de-energizes, instantly chopping the fuel supply. This whole life-saving sequence happens in a matter of seconds.
And here is how the controller interacts with an external system, like an ATS, an automatic transfer switch, or a SCADA network. Step 1, the ATS detects that utility grid power has failed. Step 2, it fires a signal, making the remote start input on the DSE active. Step 3, the controller processes the logic. It decides, okay, time to start the engine, run a warm-up, and verify voltage and frequency. Step 4, it fires its outputs, triggering the fuel and starter relays to crank the engine. Once everything is totally stable, it fires the breaker close relay to seamlessly take the load.
Section 5. Troubleshooting faults. The technician's checklist.
Okay, you're on site and the rig just refuses to start. Run through this checklist. You're either missing an incoming sense or failing to send an outgoing action. On the input side, check if the e-stop is active. Remember, it's normally closed, so a broken wire here kills everything. Check if the remote start signal from the ATS is actually making it to the terminal. Look for a bad low oil switch lying to the controller. Now on the output side, grab your meter. Check if the starter relay or fuel solenoid outputs are actually pushing DC voltage. Here's a huge tip. If the controller screen says it's sending a signal, but your meter reads 0 at the pins, you've got an internal controller fault. But if voltage is leaving the pins and the relay isn't clicking, that's a field wiring issue.
Now, intermittent false shutdowns are absolutely the hardest gremlins to track down. If an engine trips for a fault that isn't really happening, check these culprits. Always check for loose sensor wiring first. But honestly, poor grounding is usually the biggest offender. A bad ground makes the controller's voltage references float, which perfectly mimics a closed switch. Also, double-check for faulty pressure switches, or see if massive engine vibration is just causing two wires to rub together and short out intermittently. Solid wiring and proper grounding techniques are your absolute best friends against false shutdowns.
What if the engine runs beautifully, but the breaker just won't close to take the load? First thing, check the breaker feedback input. The controller absolutely needs to know the real physical position of that breaker. If it thinks the breaker is already closed, or if it thinks it's tripped, it won't even try to close it. Next, check if the close output relay is actually firing. Confirm on your display that the voltage and frequency have actually stabilized to your programmed set points. And lastly, just make sure the breaker coil itself actually has its required supply voltage.
To stay ahead of all this, you've got to follow a routine maintenance schedule. Test your e-stop and critical digital inputs every month, and check the health of your interposing relays for wear and tear every 6 months. It all comes back to this quote: "Without inputs, the controller becomes blind. Without outputs, the controller cannot control anything." You really have to respect both sides of the terminal strip. It is that constant, harmonious chatter between the information coming in and the commands going out that makes modern automated generators work. Together, they are the whole automation system.
Wow, we have covered a massive amount of ground today, from that basic human brain analogy all the way to diagnosing complex ATS logic. As you pack up your tools and head back into the field, I really want you to think about this final thought. Even the absolute largest, most critical infrastructure grids on Earth rely entirely on these exact same simple on and off signals. So how will mastering these foundational signals change the way you approach troubleshooting your next complex automated system? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.